everybody, it's Amy and Maggie from ThinkerThemer, and we are back with a new episode of 10 out of 10, and I'm so sorry it's been so long.
It only took like a year for it, the following episode.
I know, and people keep asking about it, so thank you for inquiring.
And for your patience.
For your patience. We've been waiting to have our new studio set up, which we have now, and we are very excited to be talking about 10 more games. Now, the original premise of this series was to rate every game in our collection, but they come in at such a fast rate and they go again that we really focus on new games.
Yeah, also we've had such a chaos with our books, like with our library in terms of like, as we've been moving and things kind of have gone into storage and then come out of storage at different rates. There's still some stuff in store. So it's a bit hard to stay on top of or keep track of.
Yeah, so instead we're just going to keep on featuring games that we're playing. Yeah. So let's get stuck into this. As always, we're rating 10 games on a scale from 0 to 10. And the way we like to think about this is what would the score be if we went to BGG and it perfectly reflected how we felt about the game? Yeah. That is how I like to think about it, because people are like, how do you think about the 0.5 or the decimal place? It's like, that's how. Yeah. And that's why you find a lot in that, once you get to 7, most of you probably look at BGG. Once it gets to that realm, you're like, okay, that might be a game for me. And so that's why a lot of them tend to congregate around that area, but we have some real polarizing titles this time around.
There's also this thing of there's often a lot of things in that realm of the 7s because things already get pre-screened, I guess. Like, we're not going to take in a game that we're like, there's no way we're going to enjoy this at all. So it's already, it's going to be extremely rare for something to come in extremely low.
Yeah. Okay, so without further ado, let's get into it. We have a couple of Stonemaier titles to talk about first up. The first is Finspan. Now, we spoke about this briefly because I actually played this for the first time at Dice Tower West last March. So we have spoken about it on the channel, but at that point in time, Maggie hadn't actually played it, and we didn't have our own copy, which now we do, and so we've played it a lot more. This essentially is the game where everyone was like, is this a practical joke when it came out? Because when it got announced, it was like Finspan.
Yeah, more games in the span universe.
Yes, and everyone thought it may have been a joke. Turns out it wasn't.
It wasn't a joke.
It is an extension. It has the similar DNA to the Wingspan series. Different designer, but Elizabeth Hargrave was involved in the development. Now, Finspan is similar and different to Wingspan. There's a few differences. I'll talk about those. So in Finspan, you're essentially going to be populating your board at different levels of depths of the ocean with a whole range of different species of fish. So the card DNA is very similar to that of Wingspan. If you like reading about facts about different species, for me, fish is so much more exciting than birds. I'll start with that.
We learned that. Well, I already knew that you were, but I didn't anticipate how into fish and how taken with this theme you would be.
I really was.
And every card's like, it's like it really hit a themer point for you there.
It did, because I grew up fishing. I was, always like by a river or by the ocean, and I spent a lot of my youth kind of just with a little hand reel fishing, pulling up mostly bream in Australia, but and I still really enjoy fishing. So firstly, the cards, they are just so cool in that they represent everything from the more common fish that you see, maybe shallower, some of the more beautiful fish, and then in the depths you've got some of those like creepier ocean bottom dwelling fish. So I really enjoy that mix of fish. But what are you doing? You've got a diver and 3 columns, and essentially instead of activating a row like you do in Wingspan, this time the diver is you can choose to have the diver dive down and activate each of the fish that you've put at different depths. And there's no resource like kind of dice tower in this game. It's much more simplified, I think, than Wingspan. But also you have an open hand of cards. So that's quite interesting and something that people were a bit concerned about. It doesn't really matter, honestly, because there's not a huge amount of interaction in this game. Yeah. It's mostly positive interaction when other people are, allowing you to maybe lay an egg where, as a bonus on off turn, which is fun. But what I really like about this game as well is that there's these mini fish. So you have eggs just like you do in Wingspan, and then they turn into young, which are little fish that are going to be meeples on your puzzle. And then you're trying to bring them together to create schools of fish through just puzzling out, moving them across, and then they condense together into a school of fish. And that's going to be worth quite a lot of victory points at the end. And so you're trying, this is overlay of a separate puzzle on top of the card laying synergy type puzzle that we're used to from a Wingspan. So
I think overall, I found it quite, it feels a lot simpler or easier to get into.
Yes.
And even just the flow of it, it's sort of quite, it felt quite smooth and quite relaxing. This is probably the one that felt the most relaxing of all the Span series. Yeah.
I agree. I find this setting very relaxing, but the gameplay is also very relaxing. I will say I prefer it at a lower player count. I do like the positive interaction. You get more of that in a higher player count, but just in terms of like getting back to your turn, I'd rather have more turns more quickly in this game. And so I do like it at a lower player count.
Yeah, nice.
Yeah.
I actually haven't had a chance to play the solo mode with this, and I think part of it is because, interestingly, theme-wise, it's like I enjoy fish enough, but it's not necessarily a theme that I'm compelled to kind of go in again and again. So it's not one that I would be seeking to like, oh, let me just explore it in every single different way. But I really enjoyed the multiplayer, particularly when we were playing like 2-player. I think that's probably the sweet spot for me.
Yeah, and I will say that we actually no longer have any version of Wingspan in our collection. So over the years, we have had different versions of Wingspan. And then at one point, Wingspan Asia was our favorite because it had that like 2-player, that more complex puzzle.
Yeah.
I really liked that one. That I gave a 7.8. This I'm giving an 8. And so it is my favorite in the Wingspan universe. And it's really because I just prefer fish over birds. And so, but I also just like the puzzle. It's very accessible.
Yeah, nice. This is a 7.7 for me. So it's a game that it's very, very enjoyable. But it's not in the...
It's still a good score. Still a good score.
And I think it's sort of theme-wise. It's like, I love the illustrations of the cards and all that, but
Okay. All right. What else do you have?
All right. So now we want another Stonemaier game. This was actually, it's so heavy. This was actually on my most anticipated for the year, and the game is Vantage. The reason it was on my most anticipated for the year was because of the promise of this sort of open world where all you're doing, you're exploring. There's a bit of narrative going through. So I was like, this sounds like right up my alley. And then when we actually were a bit later to get a copy of this, and so I actually got to see some playthroughs.
Well, this isn't our copy.
This isn't our copy.
This is kindly lent to us by Stella and Tarrant from Maple University.
Yes.
So.
Who have done a how to play as well. So that's mighty handy. So by the time I got my hands on a copy of this, I had already seen a few playthroughs, and I was like, oh, wait a second. I think this is not quite what I was anticipating. Now in Vantage, thematically, what we're doing is we are all in this sort of intergalactic ship, and then we're all having to kind of crash land in different parts of this alien planet. So because we're all separated, so it's a cooperative game, because we're all separated, we can't really, we can't see what each other can see, but we can communicate, and we can sort of share from our perspective, or our vantage point, if you will, what we're seeing. So you've got these cards that are the location cards that tell you essentially where you are, and then all the different actions that you could engage in that or do in that location. So in terms of mechanically, what ends up happening is you got as you decide what type of action you want to do in that location, you will have there's all these different books that you will read that will kind of determine, okay, based on this action, you do a roll. There's a particular number of dice that it'll determine to roll. Those dice will then have to be, they'll indicate essentially how much, I believe the attributes are time, so how much time it's taking you, the health, and also morale. And you start with your own little character card, and you're going to be building sort of this tableau of cards around your characters, essentially like developing and equipping your character, or having, different things that might be coming along with you on the journey. And as you roll those dice, you have to be able to allocate the dice to spots in your cards that match those the symbols, but also sometimes they're restricted to the type of action that you're doing. So it's kind of got this sort of color coding. If you're not able to, then your stats are going to be suffering. So how do we win this game? You can either have a mission, so you can have a mission victory, because at the start we all have kind of like a mission that we're going to want to be achieving. So if you manage to reach that mission, which you may or may not, that's a type of victory. The other one is destiny, which is along the way you may pick up a destiny. It's almost like we don't really know what we want to do with our life, but as we're exploring, we're like, I now know what I want to be when I grow up. And so then you can have, destiny victory, or you can have an epic victory, which is get those two, or the game might end if and your stats sort of come to an end. Now, there's also the proviso that you could essentially stop the game at any point if you feel like, hey, we've sort of achieved what we wanted to achieve, even if it wasn't any of those. So it does give you a fair bit of flexibility in terms of how much or how little you engage with the core thing that it's guiding you to do. Now, it's more of a suggestion.
Can I talk a little bit about that flexibility?
Yeah.
So many people reached out to me about this game because they said, I've played it and I think you're going to hate it. And look, I found when I sat down to play it, I was like, you know what? I'm going to keep a really open mind about this, as I do with any game, because I'm always looking for the game that defies my expectations. And
the outlier.
The outliers. Yeah. Like, I want to love an exploration game. Give me one that I'll love. Now, I opened the rule book and there is a rule in here. And the rule is if there's two conflicting rules,
or if you're not sure how to resolve a rule,
then just do what is most thematically fun.
Yeah. So it's open, but it requires it's like, well, then I'm doing the rule book. I'm
going to say I'm not about that life. I'm very adherent, and I want to know the exact way that I need to resolve the rule. So straight away, I was like, oh, I don't know about this. And then the end game, as Maggie just spoke about, could be simply when everybody has had enough.
Yeah.
Again, I don't like open-ended endings like that. I need to have things resolved in a way that I can plan for. So straight away, I was like, ooh, okay. But I want to first say that there are a couple of things that I think this game does mechanically in a really interesting way. I do like the fact that when you're choosing what you're doing in a location, it's essentially giving a color to the dice that you're rolling, which then have to be absorbed by all of the players' tableau. And so what that means is you do end up specializing, because as you build out your tableau, you become better at a particular action. So I can see what they're trying to do there from a character development perspective, but also I like the cooperative nature, ooh, I said that out loud, of trying to deal with getting rid of all the dice, because dice left over are going to impact on your stats. And so I like this, your tableau can handle taking some more dice. Would you mind taking those on for us, because I'm going to deal with these ones? I liked that element. However, when it came to the exploration side of things, I found myself increasingly frustrated with this game. It's very hard to plan ahead. Sometimes you're getting cards that you may not even use at any point along your adventure, which I was like, okay, I can deal with that. But then I think for me, it's the turn structure that really, there's two things. It's the turn structure where you can only go to one part of a location.
You can only engage with a location once. So you pick which of the types of actions you do there. And then for the rest of the game, you should not really be engaging in with that location. You need to kind of move on. Yeah.
And that is really quick. And then it goes to another person's turn. And I cannot imagine playing this with more than two people for that reason, because your turn can be over like that. And then you're like, well, now I'm just waiting. And it's not like I'm waiting and planning ahead. It's like, okay, I'm going to do that next. And I don't know what's coming. So so there's no using the downtime effectively in the game.
I think this sort of starts to speak to who's going to resonate with this type of game.
Hold on, can I say the second thing?
Oh, yeah,
because this might relate too. The second thing is the amount of administration in this game. So every time something happens in this game, you upgrade a card. Anytime, anything you're doing, you need to refer to a reference box full of cards. So you're just like filing through the system to find the thing. This happens so frequently, and also there's a whole heap of different books that you are literally doing admin the whole time. And if Maggie wasn't doing the admin, I would definitely not be interested.
It's like flip the table
in this game. Not to mention the sorting at the end of the game, which Maggie kindly put all the cards back into the box.
I usually really enjoy that element. Like, I love fiddling around with cards and doing all that sort of, the sorting and the looking here and there. Like, for example, I love one of my favorite games is Sleeping Gods, particularly Distant Skies. So I'll start now talking to that. This, I actually felt like, because it's not really a campaign, so these are all every game is its own thing. So you don't really have one really long narrative that you're exploring. You're really just exploring little bits and scenes of different elements that happen throughout a really, really big world that has been created here. Because there's tons of cards and tons of entries in all these different books. So it ended up feeling more sort of like bitsy for me. So it's like, oh, it's almost like a haiku of like, this happened and then that happened. And they're often like not really related. So I think the person that will connect with this a lot more is someone who likes stringing, because it's almost like a prompt. I heard this, someone said it's almost like a storybook prompt. So if you're into that sort of RPG type setting where you're explaining and you're going, oh, because of this.
You're filling in the gaps.
You're filling in a lot of the pretty much all of the gaps, because it's really just like this little thing, like which makes it faster in terms of like you're not reading a lot of narrative, but then it's like, oh, now I'm back to like doing admin. So it'll fit with that type of player or gamer. For me, I found like then the payoff that I got, narratively speaking, after all the work of finding the stuff wasn't really enough. I still enjoyed my time with like some of that exploration and going, oh, okay. And you do get to start to know a little bit of, you know, what happens in different areas. So you are sort of unveiling the world, so to speak, but there isn't one clear point that you're going to be getting to. And even with those missions and the destinies, is like, even when you did manage to like, oh, I did get the things to complete it, it was like, and then it just sort of ends and it's like, oh. So for me, I think I enjoyed my time with it. I definitely would not play this multiplayer. I enjoyed it more solo. I mean, it was amusing to see you
getting increasingly frustrated, and then sometimes really like fixated on objectives. So sometimes I would be like, ooh, and Maggie's like, oh, are you having fun? And then I was like, yeah, and then it wouldn't quite pay off. I think that's the thing for me as well. Sorry, you continue with your rating.
Well, I was gonna say it's a 7.6 for me, and I was hoping for this to be like really, really high. Like that's what's in my most anticipated. Like this could be one of like, you know, goes into my top 10s. But it wasn't quite. But I can see who it's going to work for, like the type of player.
And that's not me. So my rating for this game is 5.4, and I'm probably going to get a lot of hate in the comments from that one. But like, I want to compare it to Sleeping Gods as well, because Sleeping Gods I gave 5.5, but they are very different experiences. Sleeping Gods kind of it was so story intense, the original game, and the battling was the only thing that I could really mechanically, you know, really like cling to. This game is different in that I think there's more going on mechanically here.
I'll disagree from a okay. Yes, because there's more things. I feel like there's like the core mechanic here. It's the same kind of thing that you're doing.
No, but I want to say there's more. I think there's interesting ideas here. I really like the interaction between the tableau and the dice, and there are things where I wish had a stronger payoff, and for that reason I found myself actually more frustrated playing this, because Sleeping Gods to me is what it is. It's a game, and it's like, to me it's almost like I understand what that game's about, and it just happens to not be for me. Whereas this game, I was like, I could almost enjoy these mechanics, but I feel like a bit objectiveless and a bit like wandering aimlessly through this tableau that I find quite interesting, but I just can't find my groove with it. And so for that reason, it also rates a bit quite lowly for me. So that is all we have to say about Vantage.
That was a lot. That is a lot. There we go.
Okay, so this next game is a very new trick-taking game called Uffbasse, and it's by a German publisher, and the whole game was designed to really educate people about I'm going to say this incorrectly, but I think it's the Palatinate region of Germany, which has a very unique style of cuisine. And so this game is all about showcasing the recipes from that region. Now, the way that it works is quite interesting. It's a combination of trick-taking and recipe fulfillment or contract fulfillment. And what
literal recipe fulfillment.
Yeah, literal recipe fulfillment, because what you're going to be doing in every game, there's going to be a market of ingredients that are going to be available to you. So at the start of every round, we're going to be dealing out cards randomly underneath the market stalls that exist in the center of the table. This is going to give all the players an opportunity when you win a trick to take one of those ingredients from one of the market stalls and to save them up to be able to buy certain recipes during the meal preparation kind of phase that we have. So firstly, we're playing out trick taking to take these cards. But what's interesting is the way the market stalls interact with the mechanics of the game, because when you take an ingredient, so hold on, it's across the market stalls, the market stall that has the highest number of ingredients, so let's say it's carrots, there's the most carrots available, that is going to be the trump suit for the next trick. So when you take an ingredient, you are taking an ingredient that you want to maybe for a recipe, but you're also thinking about how is that going to change the game state? Because if I remove a carrot, maybe now it has the same number of carrots and mushrooms, and so carrot and mushrooms are going to be trump in the next round. And so you're thinking about how you're going to play out your hand and what people are taking, and that's manipulating, what is trump. So that is really interesting. And then once we play out the cards in our hand and we've collected our ingredients, we're then going to have this meal preparation phase where one at a time people can make one of the recipes, and then they're going to have a different, depending on how difficult that recipe is, they're going to have a different number of points associated with them at the end of the game. But there's another layer to this game. There is a card called the Uffbasse card. I don't know if I'm saying that correctly either, which is the name of the game, Uffbasse. And this Uffbasse card, essentially in this region, means watch out. And when you take, the only way you can take this card is if you are losing. And I mean absolute losing, you're not tied losing, you're in last place and everybody else is above you, you get to grab this card. Now you can use this magical card in two ways. The first is that you can make one of the ingredients or one of the suits trump after everybody's played their cards, which gives you a way better chance of winning. But you can, and when you do that, you get the card back, so you can keep doing that until you're no longer in last place and someone takes the card from you. Or during that meal preparation recipe fulfillment phase, you can use it as a wild ingredient, which is going to help you maybe make an even better recipe. And so it's this really strong catch-up mechanic. And I suppose that feeds into our evaluation of this game, because when we first started playing this game, we played it at the lower player counts, and that card is almost too strong. It just felt a bit wacky in not so much a fun kind of surprise sort of way. It's more just like okay. It almost sort of plays itself out a little bit more. It almost feels a little bit too strong, and it means that because there's often someone that's in last place, they can just really catch up really quickly, and you're like, it kind of made it feel a bit strange. But then we had the opportunity to play it at a larger player count, and at the higher player count, that Uffbasse card becomes really interesting because it moves around a lot more, firstly. So I found at a higher player count, everybody was watching everybody's points to see who would then drop into last place and take the card. And it just creates like more people kind of vying for that card, and more interestingly, it's moving around. But then also the dynamic that it creates around knowing that someone can change the trump suit after we play the cards makes you more risk adverse to use your trump suit cards, because you're like, well, I'm not going to waste that card, which is probably going to be trump for a little while if someone's just about to change the trump on me, because so I found it way more interesting at a higher player count. The cards themselves, so the whole reason for this game is to promote the food of this region, and for better or worse, the foods do not look particularly appetizing. With the illustration, it's like, I enjoy that kind of illustration type, but they're more on the sort of very grey. And it was quite amusing when people are, talking about the meal that they're going to make. But if you do want to make the real versions, on the back of every recipe card is a QR code. I believe it takes you to a German recipe, but still, it's like, I really love... Haven't ventured into that yet. Haven't tried any of them. We haven't tried to make any of those, but I like the idea of trick taking and recipe fulfillment, and I really like the idea that this is something near and dear to the publisher's heart, and it's all about this regional cuisine. So I really like it for those reasons. It's not probably one of my favorite trick taking games of all time, but I'll definitely play this at any time. I give it a 7.2. Yeah, for me it was a 6.9 because I feel like it's like I enjoyed the quirkiness of it, and with the market stalls, but it just it didn't sort of grab me. Maybe I need to have some of the recipes, and then I'll have a different relationship with it. I'll be like, that is that dish. Anyway, that is Uffbasse. All right, so now let's move on to
Next game, it's The Hobbit, There and Back Again. Now, the cool thing about this is a roll and write, but everyone gets their own little book, and every different kind of page of it is a different scene or a different moment of the story of The Hobbit, or so I imagine, because I'm not all that close to the IP, but I'm like, yeah, I kind of recognize, I've seen the movies, I recognize some of these characters and some of the storylines, but yeah, really cool illustrations, and essentially, yeah, you're kind of working your way through all of these different scenarios. Every scenario it's dice drafting, so you are drafting different dice that will allow you to create paths, and usually, again, it'll depend on the scenario what you're thematically doing, but you're often kind of connecting things or leading, characters to a particular area, or discovering or exploring different things, or fighting or collecting swords or bread if you're going to feed your characters, so it's quite just like any kind of roll and write. It's very I found it very peaceful in that whole, it's like, yeah, you're doing the dice drafting, but most of the time you kind of like head down and sort of, you've got it's sort of we call it dry erase markers that worked quite well with this, even kind of after going through it quite a number of times. So yeah, that's sort of essentially what
interestingly, this game really grew on me over time. When I first played it, I was like, oh, it kind of gives me Railroad Inc. vibes a little bit with the path building. And then there's a lot of like other things that I feel like I'd seen before. Maybe it wasn't like wowing me with anything particularly new. But as I played it more and more, as we worked our way, we played our way through the entire book, I actually fell into a bit of a groove with it that I really found quite cozy. And I want to say why that's strange is because I think, The Hobbit or Lord of the Rings or those types of fantasy worlds based on the IP don't often give a cozy vibe to me. They, that world, and I think it's partly the illustration style that they've chosen to use here, and the fact that it is in a book. And I just felt like, with a cup of tea, I could sit down and play this, and it's like each chapter is actually quite a long game, and so you just have to kind of be settled in it, settled in, and I actually found that over time that's quite relaxing. I think the thing that I also enjoyed is that every chapter uses the resources in a different way, and so that's good and bad. It's good, there's a lot of variety across the different puzzles. It's bad in that you always have to, of course, read a new rule set in between in the rule book, and then so there's a little bit of downtime between let's try another one, because hold on, let me remind myself how bread works in this scenario, or what we need and what we don't need. It's not super onerous though. No, it's not. It's quite concise, and the rules are very well written, so it's not difficult. There's also some little reminders on the book itself, but it just depends on whether you enjoy that or not. But I do think it offers a bit of variety without being too much like, oh, this is completely different.
Yeah, I also played through it solo, so you're essentially using the rule book gives you how many rounds and what are the limitations for each one. One thing that I found though, and I don't know if this was the way that I was playing, was it felt like the difficulty of it was wildly, it varied wildly from scenario to scenario. So it wasn't like a clear gradual, oh, they're getting harder. It's like some of them were like, this was almost too easy, and some of them was like, well, this was I had no chance with it. so there's also but it was enjoyable though. Again, it's that whole very, very sort of head down. You're kind of going through it. It's not a stressful. Well, I guess if you're playing solo, you're like, this is not good because you have much more of a limit. But I sort of enjoyed it.
I was just going to say, but now that I've played through, I don't feel like I need to go back and play them again. I think that's the key point of why it's not a high rating for me. I enjoyed my time with it, but now I feel like I've moved on, and so for that reason, I gave it a 7.2.
Okay, yeah, I actually gave it a little bit high. It was a 7.3 for me, but I was going to say there's also, which we haven't mentioned, there's an advanced mode that you can play. But again, it's like Amy's saying, you'd go back and do these scenarios with just like a bit of a harder variant. And I would agree that I was like, there was nothing in it that felt compelling enough for me to go like, I need to go back and do
play it all, but harder.
If you're attached to, if you've got that connection with the IP though, I can see how you'd be like, yeah, I just want to stay in this world for as long as possible.
Yeah, so that is The Hobbit, There and Back Again. Okay, so the next game is another new little puzzle game. It's called Shallow Sea, and this game takes place in the Great Barrier Reef, so pretty close to home for us.
Around the corner.
Just up the road. But Shallow Sea is a puzzle game where we're going to be drafting tiles and we're going to be placing them out into the Great Barrier Reef. And in this game, there are 3 different types of tiles and resources that you're interested in. There are the fish. So these are the little meeples. There are coral tiles, so that's where the fish are going to find their home. And then you've got the sea life tiles, which are tiles that are going to give you objectives, kind of like Calico style when you put them down onto your puzzle board, that relate to the coral and the fish that surround them. And you're going to be drafting them in a similar way to, let's say, Verdant or Cascadia, where you have the pieces that are drafted as a set. So you've got 3 rows of goodies and you always have to take 1 fish and 1 tile. So you've got 10 different combinations available to you. You can take a fish and a sea life tile, or you can take a fish and a coral tile. And when you do, you take them both and you place them down into your little Great Barrier Reef, your partial part of the Great Barrier Reef. And you can place those anywhere. But what's interesting is the coral tiles have little colored notches around them, and that tells you where you need to have fish located in the bubbles around those tiles. As soon as you do, you are able to flip that coral tile over, and that's going to give you victory points at the end of the game. And every time you flip a tile over, you're also going to get these shells, which are going to enable you to break the game, so break the draft, refresh the tiles, all of those different things that we're used to from games like Cascadia. Or if you spend 2 of those shells, you can also move the fish around, which becomes really helpful later in the game. Because the interesting thing about the puzzle is the way that you connect those coral tiles together gives you opportunities to pull off big combos, because maybe you put the last fish down between 4 tiles that all need a green fish, and it activates all of them. But the trick to the puzzle is, as they turn over, you need to allocate a fish to that coral tile. So in that example that I gave where there's 4 that need the green fish, when you turn over the first one, you don't want to allocate that green fish, because then you're breaking the completion of the other 3 tiles. So thematically, one fish gets to call that coral home. And then once you've started creating that coral and fish habitat, then you're bringing in the sea life into the habitat as well, and they're going to relate to different patterns. So for example, a sea life might want to have 3 fish of the same color, or 3 coral of a certain color in a different direction. And so that's how you're going to be getting points in this game. There's also 2 random group objectives that you're going to pull out as well that will score at the end of the game too. Whew. Now, let's just talk about the positives and negatives about this game. I would say that
very relaxed.
It is very chill. Relaxed.
You feel like you're underwater, like scuba diving. It's like, this goes here, and then this little fish goes here, and oh, look at that, that's a coral, and the fish went into that coral. That's kind of like the vibe.
It is. It's very cruisy once you get playing. I would say that I've set this up every time we've played, and there's a couple of things about the setup that are a little bit, there's a lot of these games that have this, but you need to have the right number of fish in the fish bag. You need to have the right number of tiles in the tile bag. And then for better or worse, there's, depending on the player count that is, and then for better or worse, there's also a lot of different kind of sea life puzzle scoring condition tiles that you can choose from. Now, this is good in that it creates variability from game to game. There's so many different potential combinations of those tiles that you can put in the bag. But again, it's just another setup element where actually you can only have a certain number of each type of tile. So you're choosing 10 and you're comboing them together. It doesn't take that long, but it is a bit more admin intensive than say, jumping into a game of harmonies, for example. So it does take a little bit to set up. When I'm playing the puzzle itself, I like the chaining combos, but actually the puzzle doesn't hit as hard for me as it does. Maybe I would liken it to the fact that we didn't enjoy the original Cascadia as much.
Yeah, like the sort of, it just, I think for me, it's just that it feels quite abstract in its execution. Like Harmonies is super thematic in terms of the type of, the ecosystem that you're building, ecosystem, I should say, and the animals that you're attracting and all of that. Whereas Cascadia is like the thematic sort of reaches like, okay, well, this type of animal, this is the kind of configuration that it wants. And that already started to feel more like that was more abstract for me. This is ultra abstract. This is just like colors and then the directions. It's like there are different ones here. And so I think I find myself like my mind sort of switches off a little bit because I can't really feel myself as immersed beyond just like, okay, well, maybe I'll put this one here. Maybe, oh yeah, that'll have a good synergy. And then, oh, maybe that, that scoring tile will do.
Yeah, I think also because the puzzle itself is more visually complex, and the fact that everybody has different scoring tiles on their reef, it means that it makes it harder to hate draft if you wanted to, but because you can't, and also to get a quick evaluation of how far ahead someone is.
Yes.
So in games like Cascadia or Harmonies, you can look over and you can be like, I can see what you're doing. You're trying to create one long river over there, and I'm going to take that piece of river because I don't want you to do that. You could do things like that. Whereas this game, it's way more... it's just harder to evaluate.
It's obscure what people might be doing. Not because it's like, it's obviously there on you can see it, but because it's all more like, oh, different, same. It's like,
But I just want to say, it's not a bad game.
No,
it just doesn't hit for me because it's such low interaction, and the color puzzle, I don't know, me and colors. And, I do enjoy, though, the sequencing of the tiles, but it's probably not a game that I would just be like, let's play another game of Shallow Sea.
Yeah.
So for that reason, I will say there is an expansion that does make it a little more interactive with race objectives. But for me, as is, it's a 7 for me. I don't mind playing it. I'd probably get someone else to set it up, but
I can set it up for you. I know it's a 7 for me as well. So it's again, it's like I enjoy it. I've enjoyed it when I play it. But it doesn't hook me.
But this is going to be like Cascadia. I feel like there's going to be people that this will be their new puzzle game.
Yeah.
Okay.
Absolutely.
So that is Shallow Sea.
Well, now let's go into a smaller box, and this is the game Ruins, which was actually on our most anticipated for Gen Con. This was a Gen Con release. So Ruins is all about, thematically, you're exploring and discovering ancient ruins, but really mechanically, I really love the artwork though on this one, which was one of the things that drew me in. But what you're really, really doing is it's a shedding game, so you're trying to kind of get rid of your hand of cards. However, the twist here is that the cards will evolve. There's a card crafting core mechanic. The cards are in a sleeve, and you're going to be able to level them up. And even at the start of the round, you can kind of turn them to, they have like a day side and a night side, and so it's a constantly evolving deck.
Yes, very true of the designer John DeClaire.
Yes,
who kind of came up with that card crafting system with the acrylic overlays that you put in front of the cards.
Correct. It's kind of translucent, so they actually work on as you put multiples of them. Now, what ends up happening is you particularly because it's a shedding game, you're creating sometimes really powerful cards. Sometimes a card might be worth essentially 2 cards, so it's like a pair in the one card, or sometimes like you're adding to the number of it, so it just becomes this sort of outrageous number, which can make it really tricky when you're like organizing your hand at the start of a round. You're like, oh wait a second, no, this is now like this outrageous number. The other thing that you can do is you can claim cards. So you can claim from memory, I think, up to 2 cards, that then by you putting your kind of color translucent thing on it, when they get shuffled back into the deck, if anyone pulls it out as we're doing a new round, that has to come back to you, which is cool if it's a really powerful card that you're like, I want to have this every round. But it's a shedding game, remember, so you also don't want to be having to be stuck with one extra card that may or may not work with what is happening in that particular round. So there's all of these things that are going on that make it quite interesting and quite chaotic at times in terms of the way the rounds play out.
Yeah, and the way I can best explain, I was really anticipating this game as well, I'll just say, but the way that I describe to people how I feel about this game is that famous Coco Chanel quote as, when you're leaving the house, look in the mirror and take one thing off. I feel like there's a lot of ideas in this game, and it probably could have been stripped back a little bit, in my opinion, for ease of getting into, and for the size of the box, and the way that I want a shedder to appear in my game night. There is so much going on here, as Maggie mentioned. And then there's a couple of decisions that for me are just a little bit like the cards, they're so big. And actually,
it's like a tarot size.
Yeah, I find it really uncomfortable to hold those cards. Plus, you're also trying to evaluate, as Maggie said, which cards have had things added to them and now are actually no longer the card that you think you're looking at. And then on top of that, they had to bring in the thing where you could turn it upside down as well. So there's the
back to front.
Yeah. So there's the changing it to nighttime. There's the adding things. There's the reallocating to people if they own that card. And then at the end, the scoring, if there's a tie, there's like this weird head to head that goes on to tie break where everyone who's not in that just kind of sits back while these players play it out to see who wins. And that's a weird scoring choice in my opinion as well, and it just extends a game that is actually already quite long. There's a lot going on.
There's quite Look, having said all of that, I quite it is a little bit chaotic, and it does feel like there were certainly some editing could have happened to make it feel a little bit smoother in some areas where it didn't need to be, because it wasn't just the chaotic nature. It's like it was just kind of confusing, and it just felt a bit clunky with for example that scoring bit at the end of who wins, and you have to have had this score and then also come essentially be the winner of that round, which is actually
enough going on with the card crafting. Don't add all the other little bits.
With all of that said, I still really enjoy my time with it, again because I don't mind the fiddliness of
not to mention at the end of the game you have to deconstruct everything as well. So it's a lot of, it's a lot of stuff for this little box.
Look, it's a 7.4.
It's a 6.9 for me. And I'm sure that is going to be an unpopular opinion. I know it's a very popular game. It just didn't work for me for all those reasons, but I do really appreciate smooth gameplay, and I did feel like there were a few too many things here to achieve that for this particular game. So that's why my rating is what my rating is, but that's Ruins. But now let's talk about another all-play game that came out.
From one small box to another.
Yeah, it came out around the same time.
At the same time,
At the same time, and this is in the same
batch.
It was
also in the same list of our anticipated.
Yes. So Oddland is a very, very quick game where everybody is given, essentially at any one time, you've got 2 cards that have different habitats on them that are split into a grid of 4. And this is a card melding game, like Cafe, where you overlay the cards to change the habitat that's forming in the middle of the table. And all you do on your turn is simply choose one of the 2 cards to add to the habitat, but then you have to add one of your meeples. So there are these odd merge of different animals.
Yes, they're hybrids.
They're hybrid animals that are going to be placed out in one of the 4 squares that are on the card that you just added to the world. And so when you do that, you are committing to a particular scoring condition that is associated with that animal. And that can be variably set up at the beginning of the game. But essentially you're like, okay, I am now putting my owl out, or whatever the owl mashup is. I'm putting my owl out into the universe, and now everybody around the table knows how that is going to score at the end of the game, and I have committed to placing it there as the world continues to grow, which means you have to think really carefully about the order in which you put those animal meeples out, because essentially everyone else can mess with you at that point.
You're inviting sabotage.
It's not until the last one really, but then there's this other tension of there can only be one animal in each of the habitats, like a connecting set of the same type of habitat. Which means that if you wait too long to put something out in a really, that's going to score a lot for this particular type of animal, you'll probably miss it because someone else will jump in. But if you do jump in, then everyone's going to try and cover it up so you score less. So it's just this really highly interactive, fun, light scoring world building game. It's got that kind of Carcassonne feel to it, where everyone's contributing to something and people are trying to score using their meeples. I really think they did a great job of this game.
This was a surprise because it was one that I was like, I love the artwork of it, but I didn't think I would enjoy it as much as I did once I started playing it, going, this is just so much fun.
It is so much fun. Yeah, and it's a little bit mean.
It's a little bit mean, but it doesn't overstay its welcome. So it's it's just long enough that then it's where you start going, okay, and then it sort of resolves, and then it doesn't really matter how well or badly you did. It's just a bit of a fun thing, and then you're moving on.
It has been such a crowd pleaser. I've played this at work, I've played it at cons, and every time you play it, everyone just you can teach it really quickly, but then everyone just really enjoys that tension of like, you know, and some groups are meaner than others. I won't name names, but there are people who are like, oh, you know, I'm covering that up, but you're not scoring that, you know, and so it just creates a lot of banter. It's a lot of fun, and it's a really cool puzzle. I believe it's a first-time designer as well, which is really cool. The one thing that I'd say, I don't really love the weirdly titled merging of two animals. Like,
well, it's Oddland, so it's meant to be like you're going through and exploring this very odd places.
Oh, I get the concept. Thanks for explaining.
I get it. But more wife-splaining.
But it's actually quite hard to then be like, oh, you know, the pigeon. Like you end up just calling it. Oh, how does the pigeon score again, or how does the owl score again, even though they've got different names, because it's a bit harder to then talk about what they do.
But look, it makes for great art.
Exactly. And would it have been a bit more boring and similar to other games in this genre if it had just been regular animals? Yeah, probably. So, I mean, it's a hard marketing one, isn't it?
It worked for me. So if it's a gimmick, it worked for me.
Yeah, so what did you give Oddland?
For me, it's a 7.9. I really, really enjoy it. It's just, and it's like the mark of a fun little game is how many people you then want to introduce this to. And this is something that, like, you know, taken to work, and it's or like when we're at a con, and it's like, hey, you've got a few minutes, let's have you play this, let me introduce you to it, like that joy of wanting to share this.
And I will say there were more games that we've played from All Play recently, and this is probably my pick of their recent ones. We haven't played the most recent batch that just launched at Essen, but you know, I really like this game. I give it an 8, so that is Oddland.
Okay, now the next game is also a melding type game where you're kind of putting cards on top of other cards, and it's called Tacta. Now, this is a very abstract game. There's no real theme that I know of or can tell, but all you're really doing is every player has their own deck of cards, and they have these sort of neon-like shapes, geometric shapes on them, and as you're playing them, you're going to be putting your card overlapping, so finding one of the shapes on your card and overlapping a shape that already exists on the board, so on top of that, without overlapping other cards. So you're sort of playing on the edges, but matching particular shapes, and they can be really kind of clever ways, because sometimes it's kind of corners or in the middle of the card. They also have points exposed on them, which is at the end of it, we're all going to be essentially contributing to the same, we're going to be building the same sprawl of cards. And so at the end of it, you're going to get points for however many exposed point dots there are of your cards. The tricky thing with this is when someone is placing a card, they can place it anywhere that matches the shape, and very often it'll be very strategically covering other people's points. So it becomes this sort of, the tricky thing is going, okay, how do I place a really high value card in a way where it's going to be protected, where I know that, you know, the way that someone could come and put a card on top of it is not going to ever cover up my points.
And so because maybe the card can't fit because it's wedged between two other cards. So as the card sprawl gets bigger, it creates these like really fun moments of like, ooh, I can place a card right there, and the table edge becomes like the edge of the game. So no one can block that. If I've got 4 points running along the edge of the table, that's very safe.
Or the way a card comes in means that, like, you know, my super high point is just like sits right next to another card, and so there's never going to be anything covering that. So like that becomes really interesting.
And I just wanted to add as well that it's super easy to set up, because all you need is the starting card in the center. Everybody takes a deck of one color and they shuffle it, and their choices become what's on the top of the deck the bottom of the deck. So they always have 2 cards that they can choose from when they're playing down. Now, this game, when we first played it, we played it at a con, and we were like, oh yeah, it's good. Yeah, it's good. It's interesting, and I like the spatial puzzle of it. And then one of our friends said, who was teaching us, he's like, you know what? I've been playing this the regular way, but there's a variant in the rule book that makes it real time. Do you want to give it a go?
Like, yes.
Yes, we do. And so in this version of the game, everybody is playing into the same puzzle, but as fast as they can, covering as much as they can, still playing legal movements, but trying to work out where the card fits really quickly and playing it down. And the game continues until someone runs out of their deck of cards, and then at which point we add up the points. Now, this fundamentally changed this game for me. It took it from Probably about, 7.2, 7.1, 7.2. I'm giving this a 7.9 for the real-time version of this game. I loved it so much that I think we played it like 7 times in a row after that. I was just like, again, let's go again. Super addictive. And since then, I've taught it so many times. And everybody just loves that variation. I will say, it helps if you play a cut down, sometimes even halve the deck version of the original game, just so everyone understands.
Just turn-based game first.
Turn-based game to get used to what's legal and not legal and like how the world gets created. And then from there, I'm like, okay, now here we go. Real time.
For me, it's a 7.4 and I will agree. The real-time mode, so much more fun. Once you kind of know what's going on. It's so clever the way that, you can kind of get these sort of shapes and figuring that out. But I think like, and this is something that is like, I can't wait to take it to work. Like we have an event coming up where there's like a big part of the company's kind of coming together. It's like, this sort of game is going to go down a treat. And you've taken it to work and played with people.
I have. And even in a bigger group, I had, they were playing in teams. And even then it was really fun. Not in the real-time variant, but in the turn-by-turn, like they were just, but we could go there or we could go there and helping each other. It's been a really big hit. A bit of a surprise. I'd seen photos of it on social media. It's by the Op, so it has great distribution. I wasn't sure what to expect, but that real-time variant. You heard it here. I don't know, maybe other people have said that too, but you have to check that out.
It's a lot more stressful. So if you want a sit-down, quiet type experience that is more just like, then you just do the turn by turn. But
if you want something energizing,
that's the real time is the way.
Okay, so the next game we're going to talk about is another little puzzle game. It's not really that little. Pergola. Now, Pergola, firstly, I will say this game is gorgeous.
It's really beautiful.
It is gorgeous. When we had it, we were at PAX Australia, we were playing this game. The number of people that walked past and was like, what is that game? Taking photos of it, taking photos of the box. It really draws you in. So if you like plants and gardens, this is going to have an aesthetic that's probably going to please, but also a gameplay as well, because in this game, what you're doing is you start with a blank garden and you're going to be drafting resources or different plant types or different insect types along with actions. And so it's got that dual draft system again. And the way that the resources are depicted are on these tools, which are so cute. And so there's this set of tools that you're going to set up that basically relate to the player count. It's going to dictate how many turns are played throughout the game. But essentially they come in conveyor belt style into this like action selection system. So you're choosing a tool and an action together, and then you're going to play that out on your board. Now, the one thing I'm going to say straight away that I like about this game, and I've found like quite unusual, is your garden is like this open space where you can design where you want to put things. So maybe I'm going to start like growing this tree over to this like plant, this big tall plant over one side, the magnolias. I don't know. I can't remember. I can never remember the thematic names.
I'm not a gardener. Neither of us has a green thumb, so it's one of us like, oh, this plant. And hopefully it stays alive by the end of the game.
But then also you're going to be taking insects and placing them to score as well on these different plants. You're going to be building out like these areas for honeybees so they can create honey to give you more opportunities to score. You've got this waterfall off to one side of your garden where you're going to be moving your water droplet to pick up resources along the way. It is just so cozy. And there's many different ways you can score, and you're going to be deciding kind of what is the path that I want to take in order to get the most points. But there's like this little birdhouse, and even at the start of the game where you can put that anywhere you like. You want to put it up on the fence.
That's kind of daunting. It's like having too much freedom is a thing. It's like sometimes you want some boundaries. Otherwise, it's like, am I going to do it wrong? It's like, you can't do it wrong. It's like, but I feel like
I thought you would enjoy that more.
But you kind of, once you kind of get into it, it just feels strange to not have any kind of guardrail of to even just like, you do sort of go, this general area is where this goes, and this general area, but yet you have so much freedom. And it's like, oh, okay. I enjoyed it once I relaxed into it.
Yeah, and the game is a real point salad. There's a lot of different things that you can do if you want to focus on a particular type of plant, or you want to get as many bees as you can, or, you know, you want to get as many ladybugs as you can. And so there's a whole range of things that are going to score in different ways at the end of the game. And all of them, you know, will probably, you know, your focus will probably serve you well.
Yes.
There are also like little lanterns that can be put up in the tree. And I just think the puzzle itself is nothing particularly new. The way that you're drafting is not particularly new. The way that things score is also not that new, but the aesthetic adds a ton here. It's doing a lot of the heavy lifting, but also that fact that, so you can build out as you like, but also the components are so beautiful. The little pots that everybody has where you're collecting the tools to remind you how many turns you've taken.
Yeah, that's pretty handy for that,
it's been really thoughtfully produced.
Yeah.
And I think a lot of people are going to love it for that reason.
I think if you enjoy that setting and it's like, it's kind of crunchy enough that you're like, oh yeah, I'm kind of trying to do this and this, but it's not a stressful experience, or at least I didn't find it to be stressful. It's very cozy, very welcoming in that stage, but it still feels quite concise, like, what do you call it? Complex enough in the sense that there's enough to do. It's not like, oh, well, this is just like too simple and I'm out kind of thing. It's like, no, there's enough to sink your teeth into.
There's a lot of different choices and all of them are good. You know, it feels really good to play. Actually, this game charmed me quite a lot, not just from the aesthetics, but it just feels really relaxing, and I think a lot of people are going to enjoy this game. I gave it a 7.6.
Oh, nice. I actually, it was a bit lower for me. It's a 7.2 for me, because again, I love how cozy the setting is. I'm not really a gardener, so it's one of those. It's like, I enjoyed it. It was, the puzzle is, enjoyable enough, but again, there was nothing sort of ultra unique. And so,
I just say, not being a gardener or a fisher, all those things doesn't stop you playing like Stardew Valley or those kind of games. But
that's probably why, because like, you get to do a little bit of everything in that. It's not just
specialized.
You're doing the one thing. I don't know why. That's a good. I'm going to be thinking about that. Like, why do I connect with that so much?
Anyway, that is Pergola.
And now for the final game that we're going to be talking about today.
Are you better at this setting?
Well, we'll find out.
Sorry, that was the worst segue.
Look, I would say it's not a setting that I'm super familiar with, so it was an interesting experience. So this is Nightshift. So Nightshift is actually, the theme is you are an exotic dancer in a strip club, and you can play this either competitive, so it's like everyone's their own dancer, and you're trying to get the most money. So it's like whoever ends up getting the most money by the end of the night is the winner. You can also play it cooperatively, which is a save the club thing, where you're all kind of trying to reach a particular fundraising goal, and you can play it solo. I actually haven't played it solo, but it is on my list of things that I do want to do. So with this one, interestingly, it was created by the designer is Exotic Cancer. That's her name. The what do you call it?
Her handle?
Her handle, yes. And so she is actually, this is based on her own experiences working as an exotic dancer
in Melbourne.
So it's extremely thematic and very, very well informed in terms of what you're doing. It's a night at the club, and you essentially everyone has their own unique kind of figurine with like one particular power that you each have, and you're going to be using every round. You're going to be using your particular action points to move around the club and engage with customers. So they start out with like all the tables face down, so you don't really know which customer that's going to be until you kind of approach them, and then you spend some of your action points to turn that table over and engage with them.
And all of the customers have like a certain wealth level. It has a lot of thematic text about what brought them into the club. And then they have a loyalty rating as well.
Some of them actually already come with a particular loyalty to one of the dancers. So which means that if you're that dancer, you kind of have better chances getting better benefits, essentially, if you're engaging with that customer. So ultimately, what you're going to be doing is, as you're engaging with them, I really enjoyed the sort of the quirky, the illustration type, and also just, the way it's all, it really kind of sets the tone of like, you're kind of in this nightclub, and I can't confirm this, but I feel like I have heard Exotic Cancer talk about the fact that like the characters are very much feel like informed by people.
They do,
like
but
real
also
life.
you could imagine that the cast of characters and their reasons for being there are very well. That distribution of people is very well represented.
And so then, as you're engaging with them, you kind of roll the die to decide to sort of see what level of engagement you manage to get with them, and they all have slightly different things that some of them might be able to kind of give you money or give you other kind of perks, or you might be able to take them to the VIP room or like I think it's the private room, which then becomes essentially they're their own mini games, and they're both different versions of a push your luck mini game. One of them is about when you're sort of doing a dance, so you're giving a dance, and you're pulling out different cards that demonstrate what areas you're highlighting, and you don't want to be too repetitive, because if you're too repetitive by taking out the same sort of body part or area that you're featuring, then you bust. And same with the other mini game is about more like the different characteristics that you're highlighting. It could be your wits, your smarts, or your empathy. And again, you don't want to be too repetitive, or else you might bust.
Now, obviously, this is not going to be a theme for everyone. It says age 18 plus on the box, and I would listen to that. But also, some people are just not going to want to engage with this world. There was a bit of backlash when this game launched. And my answer to that is, if it's not for you, don't play it.
Yeah, exactly.
You really don't need to play it. But in this game, it is very well informed. But I think, if you're playing with a group that can kind of have fun with it. I will say, when we played this game, we played with a group that we knew would enjoy the theme. And in that push your luck game where you're showcasing different parts of your body, our friend decided he wanted to act out the dance every time.
Actually dancing it out, which was the most amusing when someone else was playing. So it's like, so he was actually like playing out, this is the dance, and then it's like, oh no, it's getting repetitive. It's getting, So that it's very much mechanically speaking, it's not a complex, challenging. It's like it's got essentially a couple of push your luck elements, and there's this sort of element of like to try and mitigate it. There's dice rolling for a big part of it, so you are a little bit at the hands of luck. There is a bit of mitigation, and you can buy shots and champagne that will help you, but again, it's not like a complete sort of mitigation, but it's also not the kind of game that it's like I'm here for like a really deep strategic evening. It's like it's to like have fun, explore, all the kind of motley crew of characters. And then so it's really matching it to the group that you're going to be playing this with.
And having said all that, for me, it's not really a theme that I gravitate towards, or that I necessarily want to spend my time in, and then mechanically there's really nothing that's drawing me back into this game. So for that reason, I have to give it a 6.4, because I do think that it's interesting, and if you are into a lighter, more accessible game, but for me, it's not really a gamer's game per se.
Right. So for me, it's a 7 for me, because I actually do feel like it's extremely thematic, and I actually did like in terms of the way the theme has been treated. I felt like it was treated very well, and fairly. It wasn't as outrageous as it could have gone with this sort of setting. But having said that, it's like I really did enjoy kind of getting to know or seeing like the different characters and going, and this is what their motivations or why they're here. Like I really did enjoy that. So again, match it to the right playing group, and you can have a fun night.
So that is the 10th title, and another long video from us. It does take a lot of time for us to prepare these videos, so we hope you enjoy them. If you do, hit like, and please drop something in the comments. We'd love to hear from you. We always read them, even if we can't reply to all of them. Thank you so much for being here. We're going to endeavor to make more in this series, but bye for now.
Bye-bye.